Welcome back to the program. It's the Vicki McKenna Show. And I have Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty's Dan Lennington, Attorney Dan Lennington, standing by on the program. And Dan's worn hats on all sides of the judicial aisle. What I mean by that, prosecutor, litigator. So it's not just, one thing or another in the law. And Dan, thanks very much for joining me on the program. I'm grateful that you're on the program. And I'm grateful for Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty. Let me say that. Without you, where would we be? Thanks for joining me.
Great. Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
So one of the reasons why I'm grateful for Will is because they got a spine. They're not afraid of things. They're not afraid of hard cases. So there's a couple of cases that I wanted to get to. One obviously is what I've been sort of thematically is the thing I'm doing on the show today, and that's about what's going on with the Attorney General prosecuting, I would say persecuting, Judge Troupis in a case that has absolutely nothing to do with forgery and everything to do with politics and the recent revelations of accusations against a sitting judge of significant judicial misconduct. But nothing's changing. Ordinarily you'd get the judge to at least hold an evidentiary hearing, disqualify himself. Ordinarily, when you've humiliated the Attorney General with his phony charges against the defendant, they'd back off. That's not happening. So let's start there, because if you can't get relief from malicious prosecution, you can't get relief from what appears to at least be, without an evidentiary hearing, we believe, judicial misconduct, then how is that justice and how is that fair?
It's a very strange case. It's clearly not forgery. The alternate slate of electors that Jim Troupis was involved in creating is something that Democrats have done in years past, but things that the liberals on the U.S. Supreme Court said wasn't a fine strategy, things that John F. Kennedy's attorneys did in 1960. Creating the alternate slate of electors was something that Jim Troupis told the Wisconsin Supreme Court he was going to do, and they relied on it. The Wisconsin Department of Justice wrote a memo saying there's nothing wrong with it. The Wisconsin Elections Commission knew about this, thought there was nothing wrong with it. And now all of a sudden he's being claimed to have forged the document and is on trial with two other attorneys. So the injustice started with the charging of this case. It is lawfare. It is a national effort to get back at those people who tried to help President Trump in 2020, which in December of 2020 was, in fact, a disputed election. And now this strange episode with the judge who issued an opinion denying Jim's motion to dismiss the case. And the opinion did not sound at all like Judge Hyland's words. If anybody has ever read Judge Hyland's opinions, they sounded weirdly different than this opinion. And so Jim did what he ought to have done, which was engaged an expert to look at the document that was purported to be an opinion from Judge Hyland, to examine the document, and then to compare the linguistics of that document to someone else's writings. And in the professional opinion of this Georgetown University expert, PhD, the opinion was not written by Judge Hyland, which raises all sorts of due process issues. The idea that, like, if you're a criminal defendant in a case, that your case is being decided by someone other than the judge who is purporting to preside over your case seems to be a significant due process issue. And then the idea that Judge Hyland just gave it the back of his hand and said, your motion's denied because I wrote the opinion. It's my opinion. And no engagement with the expert, no engagement with the facts that were alleged. Claimed there was no factual claim made to say that he didn't write the opinion, just basically to ignore the claims of Jim Troupis, raising this really, dark cloud over this case, which is now going to preliminary hearing on Monday. And so it's like, once again, it's raising these issues that Jim is unfortunately going to have to argue on appeal, which is going to take literally years for this case, all the time while he has to pay attorneys to defend him and to try to keep him out of prison. And this is just stuck now in the state court system with really no. The only help of relief could be as if a new attorney general was elected next year. That's really the only thing he could do, because President Trump has pardoned him. That's not going to help the state case. The only thing that really will help Jim Troupis in the short run is a new attorney general. And in the long run,
right,
after spending millions of dollars of his own money to defend himself, hope at some point maybe the U.S. Supreme Court steps in, but that's years away.
Or if Pam Bondi could launch a civil rights investigation for denial of due process, for denial of civil rights. I suppose the Wisconsin Supreme Court could weigh in on this, but they won't. Unlikely that they would do that. So here we are. And let me ask you this: as an attorney, the Jim's attorneys are, well, I don't know if they want me to say the law firm or not. It's public record, but they're good attorneys. This is a very well-respected law firm that hires very talented attorneys. Attorneys don't make allegations of judicial misconduct lightly. What happens if an attorney makes a false allegation of judicial misconduct just to try to, prejudice a case? That can't end well for the attorney.
Right. Yeah. Attorneys obviously can be reprimanded. They can lose their license. We have this weird law in Wisconsin that says if you make a claim of judicial misconduct and you make it public, that you can lose your license, according to the Wisconsin Judicial Commission. That's a separate lawsuit that we're actually involved in. We're suing the Wisconsin Judicial Commission over this claim that you can never publicly criticize a judge, which violates the First Amendment. And First Amendment, I think we're probably going to win that pretty soon next year. But yeah, this is if you are an attorney and you have an allegation of misconduct against a judge, that will be something you deal with very, very carefully. Because on the one hand, you have a duty to your client, most importantly, a duty to your client, and a duty to preserve all your client's rights and arguments. But on the other hand, you don't want to say something that would, violate your rules as an attorney, public statements. And so these attorneys in this case were very careful and filed this under seal so that the public would not know what the allegations were against Judge Hyland. But Judge Hyland, fortunately, unsealed it so that, there can be no claim that something untoward was done by the attorney. So, yes, these are very good attorneys, very smart attorneys. They had a very sensitive issue. They had a duty to bring it up to the judge. They had evidence that he did not write the opinion. They presented that evidence, and the judge has just summarily denied the motion without having any investigation or any other judge take a look at it.
So the thing is that he's just denying it. It's like essentially saying these lawyers are lying, right? The lawyers are lying. But then where's the penalty on the lawyers? Where's the call for the heads of the attorneys who they very carefully amassed evidence over very many months? Where is the call? That's what you're not hearing. That's the tell. And by the way, Hyland is known to have sort of a very tempered, not, I wouldn't say gentle, but tempered, not acidic, not acerbic, not bomb throwing. Nobody uses those words to describe this guy. And yet that was what the opinion was. And the forensic analyst said it sounds a whole lot like Frank Remington. So, I don't know how you can expect. I don't know how you can expect anybody to say anything other than this, Dan. It's rigged. The system's rigged. Josh Call wants you to know the system's rigged. Josh Call, who, by the way, is complaining about not having enough money for the crime lab, is spending money to persecute Jim Troupis on these. I'll use your quote again here. It's clearly not forgery. These ridiculous charges of forgery. And he wants everyone to know it. He wants everybody to know he's doing it. This judge. He unseals the documents. You read them and you go, holy cats, that guy didn't write that opinion. I mean, I've read the documents. I've read the evidence. And he's like, I don't care that you know. I just don't care that you know. It's like nobody cares that everybody knows the system's rigged. And then we're supposed to trust it. And I was talking earlier today, we're supposed to be to the exact period, exclamation point, semicolon in the law when the law goes against us. But when it's the government, they get to say, nah, we just don't think we violated the law. Have a nice day.
Yeah, and I'll tell you one thing. I worked for Attorney General J.B. Van Hollen, and I worked for Attorney General Brad Schimmel. And we have prosecutors, a couple dozen prosecutors that worked at the Department of Justice, and we prosecuted sexual assaults, we prosecuted murders, homicides, we prosecuted fentanyl rings, methamphetamine rings, identity theft, all sorts of crimes against Wisconsin citizens were being prosecuted by these people at the Wisconsin Department of Justice. These were the top prosecutors in the state, work for the Wisconsin Department of Justice. And now these prosecutors are taken off the duty to protect the victims of crime in Wisconsin and are being thrown in to run this case at the Dane County Circuit Court to prosecute Jim Troupis for forgery in December of 2025. This is going to take an enormous amount of resources from the Department of Justice, which could be, out there prosecuting sexual assaults. And so apparently getting Jim Troupis, the lawyer for Trump, is more important than helping victims of rape in Wisconsin and sexual assault, more important than helping parents whose kid took fentanyl from a fentanyl distributor at at high school or at a party. These young kids dying all the time. More important than helping elderly people who have had their life savings stolen from them in Ponzi schemes or with identity theft, which goes on every day and is another remit of the Department of Justice, another duty that they have to protect elders and their elder abuse. Protect elders from nursing home abuse, all these things that the Department of Justice is supposed to be doing every single day to be out there fighting for Wisconsin citizens. No, they're out. They're going to play these games about who's the bad man. Trump is the bad man. This was his attorney. It happened 5 years ago. We have to go back and get this attorney who did this thing that we think is bad. And all the while, the victims of Wisconsin crimes are sitting out there waiting for justice, but justice is never going to come.
No, it's not. And I just learned this very recently, that they put a limit on the amount of forensic evidence you can turn into the Wisconsin Crime Lab. So because resource management, because they're having a problem with resource management. That's because all of the resources are being diverted to a political, vendetta against Donald Trump using an attorney. By the way, an attorney that up until he represented Trump would have been described by every other attorney in Wisconsin as ethical, excellent. All of the superlatives would have been used to describe Jim Troupis. It's astonishing. But again, we're supposed to get a message. When the message is, this justice system is not for you conservatives. This justice system is not for you Republicans. This justice system is not for you Trump supporters. And this justice system is not for you victims of crime. So, and we're supposed to be told to shut up, sit down, and take it. That's basically the message from our press and from everybody else in government, it seems.
And by the way, if you go out and you defend conservative principles, or you defend someone like Donald Trump, or you serve as his attorney, or you help the Republicans, or you take a position, at some point when the Democrats get in charge, what they're telling you is they're going to come after you, and you're going to probably have to spend your life savings to defend yourself, to keep yourself out of prison, so that you better think twice. When the next, when it's President J.D. Vance or whatever, you better think twice about helping him or being one of his officials, because we, the Democrats, we will come after you and we'll put you in prison, or we'll try to, or we'll bankrupt you.
It's Soviet.
Along the way, yeah.
It's Soviet. Dan Lennington, I appreciate you coming on the program today. I'm really grateful for Will. And by the way, Will is always accepting donations. It's tax deductible. So please make a donation if you can. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to have you, Dan Lennington, and we will be right back.